Thanks, yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think the battle towards ISIS is no longer a physical war, but it's a battle about narratives and how we make division in our society, ladies and gentlemen. I think from opening government, we are going to say that the ability for us to make sure that the narratives of division and the narratives that ISIS are doing right now are able to be suppressed are only by accepting the individuals that feel remorse back into our society. A three-part model in our side, ladies and gentlemen. A, we will allow the ex-members of these individuals to go back towards their life in which they have lived before. Second, there will be a comprehensive screening for the ex-members. We're going to make sure that the individuals that are going to repatriated are individuals that have already been making sure that they have no longer have any connections, and we are going to do this by a lengthy investigation to make sure that individuals are actually individuals that have already feel remorse at the very first beginning. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, these individuals are going to be individuals that are willing to do this, thus showing that there is an inherent interest for them to be integrated back to our society, and inherent interest for them to know that ISIS is no longer the ideology that they want in the current status quo. I'll explain to you in my argument that by doing our proposal, we're going to suppress ISIS not only externally, but also internally. I'm also going to preempt argument from team opening opposition about opposition talking about deterrence in my speech, ladies and gentlemen. If there are any questions about model, I will accept it right now. If no, to my argument. One, suppressing. Let's talk about externally, ladies and gentlemen. In the current status quo, I'm going to illustrate to you. Right now, why do the people change their decisions? So I think, ladies and gentlemen, most likely these individuals make the wrong decisions because of their ideology beforehand, before entering ISIS. But in that process, they see that ISIS is very bad, ISIS is very evil, ladies and gentlemen. Thus, they want to come back and go back towards their society, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is, in the current status quo, they are stuck in refugee camps in Syria. There are two reasons why this is very dangerous towards our image externally. One, because most likely, ladies and gentlemen, in the current status quo externally, if we are stuck in these kinds of refugee camps, it amplifies the narrative of rejection towards individuals. This is harmful because currently the strategy of ISIS is to amplify the narrative that right now the state that you are coming from is actually rejecting towards your livelihood and your welfare to be able to seek a better form, ladies and gentlemen. So most likely, they are going to play with your head and say that right now, we are the people that are able to fulfill your needs, and your country are unable to do this at the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is very, very harmful because it also damages our ability to be able to stop recruitment from happening. Because right now, this ISIS can amplify and picturize in the current status quo in social medias, in all platforms, that right now, if you are trying to accept us, that right now, the current system that you are trying to living in are very discriminating towards your jihad and towards your struggle, towards your holiness, ladies and gentlemen. So this is very important at the very first place because it amplifies the narrative of rejection that right now is very, very prone for our livelihood, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, why this is dangerous to stuck in those kinds of refugee camps, ladies and gentlemen? Because it's geographically closer for ISIS to the ability to influence them again, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to make them to be able to lobby them again and influence them that in the current status quo they are bad and they are good, ladies and gentlemen. But even if that they are not able to be influenced, they can use them as scapegoats, ladies and gentlemen. They are forcing them to do very bad things and trying to make them to have a scenario in which that these individuals are actually people that are coming from these countries. This already happens in the current status quo, where ISIS try to recruit Indonesians by saying, there is so many Indonesians in these kinds of camps. It's going to be friendly for you to do this because your brothers are already here, ladies and gentlemen. So I think the existence of people there is inherently going to be dangerous because it can be used as scapegoats and can be used as a selling system for them to recruit these individuals, gentlemen. In comparative, ladies and gentlemen, if we are trying to integrate them back, their ability to amplify the narrative of rejection and their geographically closer ability to influence them are going to be diminished, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because we are going to change the narrative, which is that right now we are accepting your identity. We are accepting that you feel remorse, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be very good because it shows to them that their ability to feel remorse is actually going to be accepted at the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm going to start also explaining why internally this is also going to harm our ability to stop the micro support that is happening in ISIS right now, ladies and gentlemen. The strategy that right now ISIS are doing in our internal society, ladies and gentlemen, is to create division. Notice that right now, most Indonesian, there is so much Indonesian pro-ISIS organization that creates the narrative that the government are attacking our brethren of Islam, are attacking our brothers in ISIS, ladies and gentlemen. This is very, very crucial, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because this ability to create this narrative, ladies and gentlemen, is based on the fact that right now there is division between the minorities and the majorities that happens in current status quo, ladies and gentlemen. Then how in our side are going to solve this? A, because right now we can create a counterbalance of information. How? Because in our side, ladies and gentlemen, we show to them that there is a question of your ideology. Because the moment when these individuals come, then they will know that there is something wrong in ISIS, ladies and gentlemen. Because our brethren that start to fight there feel remorse and wanting to change themselves, ladies and gentlemen. So there is a question that is popping up by these pro-ISIS organizations. Because they feel that maybe their struggle is useless because the decline that happened right now shows to them that ISIS is no longer prominent at the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, directly, ladies and gentlemen, these repatriated individuals can help socialize the horrors of these individuals, gentlemen. They can make campaigns, they can make societies and socialize that say that these kinds of things ISIS have done in the past, ladies and gentlemen, is very harmful towards the livelihood and it's not our ideology, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is feasible in our side, ladies and gentlemen, because the direct and the precisely the ideology of ISIS that is questionable at the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. Even if opposition want to say that the principle of rejecting individuals for consistency is going to be important, we think, ladies and gentlemen, it's okay. Why? Because we think that most countries in current status quo are able to trade off consistency for the betterment of narratives. Because that consistency are only to show stubbornness, to show that there is a very, very big division in our society, ladies and gentlemen. So we think you must trade off consistency for stability at the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. But even if under best case scenario, ladies and gentlemen, talking about deterrence, first of all, their deterrence will not work because their reason to go to jihad is holiness reason. So if other pragmatic reasons that are going to make them rationalize are not going to work. But secondly, ladies and gentlemen, I think better in our side because the deterrents are going to be much better. Why? Because they can question these kinds of ISIS even more in our side. Because when they are able to integrate to our society, they can question that is this wrong or is this right? While in their side, you keep confirming the ideology of this holiness because you are not accepted in your society. Ladies and gentlemen, I think opening government are going to be the team that explain to you suppressing of ISIS rather than consistency. Vote for team opening government. Thank you.
The first speaker of opening government spent 7 minutes and 31 seconds. I call first speakers of opening opposition. Time serves.
Ladies and gentlemen, the opening government said that there are the ISIS issues the issue of the big division that can happen in the society, and they take example of Indonesia where many people of Islamic background are supporting ISIS. We think that in the status quo it's not like that, ladies and gentlemen, because the Islam that has been brought in the Indonesia is different with Islam in other countries. The Islams in Indonesia are based on the diversity, both on the views of liberalism, and it can we can see even the conservatism Islamic organization like FPI are resisting ISIS, as include MUI even MUI, UNIS, Muhammadiyah, and Nahdlatul Ulama even confirming that ISIS should be forbidden, should be repatriated. So I think the issue of the division, the issue that about the division in society in Indonesia, that ISIS, that still support ISIS is irrelevant. The second one, the argument of the opposing government said that as if these people, the ex-ISIS member, are the victim of the situation, but actually they are the perpetrators. They are giving choices at the first time whether they want to steal Indonesia or they want to go and to join ISIS. So therefore they shouldn't given mercy because of their own wrongdoings. So move to my argument. So the first one, we have to see the characteristic of these ex-ISIS members. The first one, we think that they are illogical enough. Why? Because they are brave enough to abandon their country for nothing significant. They are abandoning their family. They come from status and have sustainable job. Some of them often have a good capital, but they leave their country. They betray the country for a nonsense hope that they can enter the heaven. They will even promise that they will be birth of thousands of angels in the heaven. So it's illogical for them from the very first place, because they leave their country with tons of advantage they get for this nonsense, ladies and gentlemen. The second one, we have to see the reason behind the sense of remorse that they have right now. The first one, the sense of remorse that they get is only because they have nowhere to go, because the ISIS is declining. The second one, the sense of remorse came because they stuck in the refugee camp, because they don't have any facility that the ISIS given to them, and right now they are stuck in the refugee camp. So it is logical for these perpetrators, for this ex-ISIS member, to think that the most logical way to go to do is to back to their origin country. And to go back to their origin country, it is mean they have to attract sympathy. And to attract sympathy, they have to show this feeling of remorse. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, there are no scientific measurement. There are no there are no scientific technology that can measure whether the feeling remorse of someone is pure or by purpose. If they can, we believe that this, based on their characteristic that I have mentioned before, they are showing this sense of remorse because they want to go back, because they have nothing to do right there. And if they can remorse this properly, people will believe them. People will believe that they are changed, and people will believe that they should go back to their country. Based on this narrative, ladies and gentlemen, we can agree that these ex-members of ISIS has the dangerous traits that human can ever have. Because for one, they can deceive other people. They can deceive by showing act of remorse that makes people remember, that makes people feeling sympathy, even though they are the one, even though some of them are bombers, some of them killing people, and many other things. The second one, they can manipulate, because they can have the possibility to manipulate when they come back to their country origin, because they have been indoctrinized, they have been staying for years on the ISIS environment, and it is also supported by the fact that they leave their home, which have a lot of advantage for this nonsense kind of things. The next one is their ideology. Their ideology is already not in line enough with their origin country anymore. For example, the element of ISIS members from Indonesia will not in line with the ideology of Indonesia themselves, because their ideology are that Khalifah should be supported on the earth. Meanwhile, Indonesia ideology is Pancasila. The basic ideology, the basic mandate of these people are already not in line. So and the third one is their abnormal way of thinking, because they don't think about logical approach anymore. They don't think which one is wrong, which one is right, given by the fact that they leave their country for this sake of nonsense. So imagine if they go back to their country, this will happen. There will become an anxiety in the country, even though the government, as the opening government mentioned before, give them systematic. They watch them systematically. They giving them education. They giving them any support to make them become part of the society. They have to realize that the Indonesian people or the people from the other country has this feeling of negativity toward this ISIS member. They will feel the sense of insecurity toward this ISIS member living among them, even though perhaps they don't do nothing, because the image of ISIS is already implemented on the eye of the people as a terrorizing. And if these people show this kind of remorse, kind of anxiety, it will affect the ex-ISIS itself. They will become marginalized. They will become minority. They will become oppressed through mental abuse, because people will feel uncomfortable with them. This if this marginalizing happens to this ex-ISIS member, it will be really dangerous because they are mentally abnormal from the traits that I've mentioned before, and they are really dangerous if they're abnormal because first they already have the education from ISIS on how to make bombs. They already have the education from ISIS on how to kill people. So they can create a lot of negative impact if they are giving back to the environment. Moreover, if the government want to do this, the government should spend more. The government should educate them. Should really facilitate. Meanwhile, the next issue is the government hold no responsibility for these people, the government of the origin countrymen, because they are the one that choose to betray their country. Their countries, like Indonesia, are already announced that ISIS is bad, ISIS is dangerous for a year since like 2010s, but these people are still go to ISIS, are go to still on Iraq and Syria despite the warning. So it means that these countries has no responsibility to give any more positive impact toward this ex-ISIS because they are the one who make this choice and they are already perpetrators, they are already evil, they are already dangerous. Therefore, if they give back to society, they will cater the social harmony. Therefore, it is also the purpose of the government to ensure the safety of their own people because this ex-member of ISIS is no longer their people. We are very proud to oppose. Thank you.
First speaker of opening opposition spent 6 minutes 54 seconds. I call second speaker of opening government. Time is yours.
It is important for government to take them back because it's also important for government to create a narrative that they are the one who is angelic and not the ISIS themselves, ladies and gentlemen. So the point coming from opposition side of the house, they say that what about the remorse? You cannot calculate it. We say in mechanism, we have told you that if it's about the remorse, we still have the mechanism supervision and how we still want to rehabilitate these people and make sure that they are no longer having that kind of extremist ideology. But exactly, ladies and gentlemen, if they say that these people are pragmatic and they don't no longer having a receiving benefit from ISIS there, this is good because they feel their ideology is something that they can trade off. Exactly, they will think who can save them more in Sarusco and they will go to that side. If governments show that they are angelic and they want to save these people, this, in the end of the day, these ISIS members will go to the government side of the house. The fact that ISIS power is declined nowadays, they are no longer benefit these individuals. Exactly, if their basis of is pragmatism, the possibility of deterrence exists in our side of the house because they can change their side on who will benefit them more in the Sarusco, ladies and gentlemen. So my extension will be talking about how it will create trust between government and society, and second of all, how it will prevent the potential ISIS member again. So first of all, on the creating trust between the government and society back, right? What's the problem? How is our status quo, right? People who went to ISIS are only people who are radical and fanatics to their religion, but also people who feel that they are betrayed by government, in which government does not care to their financial status, for example, or because government does not accommodate your voices, example like youth from UK, etc., etc. These people are not only youth, but also women and children who are vulnerable, in which they don't have alternative in Sarusco. They follow their father in the response of not wanting to make any sins, for example. These are also people who are going to there, are also people who are clueless of what will they do there. Promises of jihad in Allah's way. Yes, they may know it in Sarusco, but they still end up going there because in their origin country, government failed and society failed to give them support system and education of how to be tolerance, their exposure of such education are overshadowed by the bigger consequences of entering the hell, ladies and gentlemen. So how this happens, like you alienate these people, and you are the one who are hard practitioners of religion, right? So you to begin with alienate them in your Sarusko, and that's the failure of government and society cannot be able to create an environment which is healthy for them. So the problem is when they show the intention to be good again, government is evil when government does not want to accept them back. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why they join ISIS is also within government contribution, right? Government responsibility to make them better in Sarusko, in their origin country. Government responsibility to reshape the image and narrative that government is angelic and no longer demonize these people, ladies and gentlemen, because to begin with they are not inherently bad. But second of all, ladies and gentlemen, this matters because the only way for society to trust and believe on the government back is contingent upon how they are treated by the government. When you open your hand and receiving them back, they will know that the one who are angelic is the state. So they will rationalize the safe and survivability that will come to them, right? Is it the ISIS or the government? So they will rationalize that when government open their hand and want to repatriate them back, means that government wants to help them, but ISIS can no longer have the power to help them back. So these kinds of decision process and rationalization coming from the ISIS members also impacting to how they rationalize the inherent characterization of their ideology, etc., etc. This will impact to other potential individuals in Sarusko that we have are also potentially radicals and still siding to ISIS, ladies and gentlemen. When they coming back and they are integrated to our society and communicate with our society, this will have a direct testimony from those people who are coming back that they explain to society that they are not in the state of they are being saved inside of there. What they do is just a war and radicalization. But what government do to me is that government save me in Sarusko and make me back have my home inside of my hometown, ladies and gentlemen. So the process of changing the stance of the ISIS member itself is happening, and they make it as a testimony and getting it back to society and make government itself having an angelic image to society itself. But how about the society's response in the origin country, right? For them being repatriated. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, we see that the way you don't like them because we bring them back, the evil person they are fearing about is that the fairness that you say can only work if government does not create sustainable supervision upon them. We said we will reshape the narrative of the tolerance, educate them back. But the capability of them showing their remorse and showing their willingness to be good again is already the standard and already the matter the government should take, that they want to be changed and they want to be back and they want government to, for example, influence them in the educational system of tolerance and etc., etc., ladies and gentlemen. But in the end of the day, the fact that they start from zero, they have no capital in this origin country. If you get them back and you make them inside of your origin country, they have to start from zero. They have no capital. So repatriated people most likely are the one who left by husbands, for example, and no longer having anyone else. There are the wife and also there are the children. So the first thing that they will focus about is how they want to survive their life and protect their children, ladies and gentlemen. So they will not make something that fear you off, because the thing that they really prioritize right now is how they can be saved in Sarusko and how they can save their children, for example, ladies and gentlemen. That is why your fear cannot fly in today's debate. But even in worst case scenario that the fear exists, we still in both sides the fear itself it still exists. If I take them back, it also may create fear from my society. But I have the intention to make them no longer having that kinds of radicalization thinking and want to give a terror. But in their side of the house, if you don't take them back, the environment that they will get is always about ISIS and always about the radicalization. So the circulation of how you want to make them become more radical is always there, ladies and gentlemen. So the question is that how you can suppress the ability of the ISIS itself to influence them back, ladies and gentlemen. If you make them come back, they will not be influenced. But if you keep them staying there, you can never change those kind of people, and that is your people, ladies and gentlemen. So my second extension will be talking about preventive potential ISIS, right? In status quo, we have UK youth joining ISIS because they distrust the government. They currently are not members who are doing the violence, right? So the only way to prevent them doing the violence and make them a good society again is for you to taking them back and do not demonize them. But there are also people who are not in the state of doing anything in Syria and in the state of emotion where they want to be safe, ladies and gentlemen. So in order for the government to make them angelic again and good again, the only way for you is to take them back and make them back your society who are good. If you keep them staying there, the potential of them becoming ISIS again and being radicalized by the kind of ideology and promises by jihad and etc. will be more inside of their house. That is why we proud to propose. Thank you.
Second speaker of opening government, span 7 minutes and 16 seconds. I call second speaker of opening opposition. Time is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, that here we want to clarify why this problem still exists because ISIS still exists in our status quo right now. So that's why it's gonna be a big problem that we already know about it, what is the ISIS give the impact to our world itself. Before I explain my argument, I have several rebuttal from the opening government itself that they claim that. They claim that they enter ISIS before because they have a different ideology before. So that exactly they are individual that easily to change their ideology. So that it's no can guarantee that they will be back to that ISIS again. And also they talking about they no longer benefit individuals. They no longer benefit individuals. We don't claim that ISIS member it's no longer benefit itself, but we claim how the harm when they back in their hometown itself. We don't say that they're not don't have a benefit as individuals itself. And the third is about if you say the government fault because not educating them, notice that this ex-ISIS member, so many of them have a good life in origin country, like they are lecturer, businessmen and smart student itself. And also that we can think the government has given their facilities well to improve their life, to give their welfare itself. Despite that, they still betray to that country itself. So that's mean their way to think their ideology itself it's different in their home country itself. So they decided to go ISIS and being a part of ISIS itself. So I will have two arguments in here. That first, why ISIS cannot exist in their home country, and the second is what we'll do instead. And the very first thing that we should understand here that ISIS member, as we know, is a part of ISIS, ISIS itself. So that means they have been part of them. We giving by giving an example that the example that they have a mind that still relate with ISIS, so dedicate easily to explore their mindset to their society in their home country itself. They still come from ISIS, so they directly go to their home country. That is not guaranteed that they also want to doctrine all of the society in there, and no one can guarantee that they really removes from ISIS. How if they are manipulate individuals to ask someone and to join ISIS itself? That that case give a worst scenario because no one can guarantee, because it's about one individuals they might have a trap behind that, so that's why they manipulate someone and so on. It's we can guarantee because of why? Because it's about the system of mind that we can control, and we cannot guarantee that how if they are manipulated and how if they have trap behind saying label their names as a member of ISIS itself. It's about the control of their mind individual itself. And then I will explain to my second argument and what we'll do instead about that. That we are claim they are ex-evil. They understand well how to be a terrorism and how to build bomb and something like that. And then they already know how to join ISIS and many more about the knowledge about being terrorists. They already understand well about that. It's already claimed by society world that labels that they are the place to we already know ISIS is the big terrorism organization in the world that I told you before that ISIS kill everyone and still exists until now, and their and then it's why we cannot give the chance for ex-member ex-member itself back to their home country, because they being rejected, they being refused by their society itself. If that want to back their home country, it's cannot necessary that their environment also not want to accept them anymore. They already refused by their country and by their environment and many more about their society. No, thanks. We as opposing opposition have another proposal to propose, because we believe we are talking about another perspective in here, that ex-member is still a human being. So that's why we considering that they will still human in this perspective. We still give you chance to life. So that's why I say before, we don't say that they not have it's not benefit that, but we still see the effect when they're back and then stay in that place, can easily bring more harm, and then why it's better they to back just go and stay in Syria itself. Why it's better? Because we see in the perspective they can more benefit individuals in there to stay in Syria, considering Syria less of population because of ISIS itself. We can know that sustainable of human resource of Syria is gonna run out wildcard because of many people as a victim of ISIS than they as dead. And also, if they stay there, they can also build a good sustainable of human resource of Syria. They already know the atmosphere condition in there and how to stay long in there, and they can replace that individuals in Syria itself, and it's gonna be good impact if they stay in there, because they can build a sustainable for the ex-member itself. They can still live, they can still looking another job and something like that, and welfare of their life. And then it's about their hometown. If they're go back and their hometown is different ideology, that their hometown is struggle for preventing terrorism, but they are still accepting ex-member of terrorism itself. So it's gonna be different ideology. And then the last is about help the sustainable of human resource of Syria itself. If they stay in that, so it's gonna be a welfare for their life. Thank you.
Second speaker of opening opposition spent 7 minutes 28 seconds. I call first speaker of closing government. Time slots.
both of the opening government as well as the opening opposition are well, but we still find that there is a lack to engage to the motion. So that's why I'm going to bring to you today that why it is beneficial and really important for us to really understand the current situation of Syria right now and its position now in the world and its threats to the world. Before I move to my argument, I want to rebuttal back to the OG bench. They said that, they told us that this ex-ISIS member feel remorseful because there are no good facilities given as well or as excellent by ISIS before. I mean, that point is good, but it is not a strong point because it doesn't really cover the major reasoning why this ex-member really opt out to be an ex-member truly. So I want to ask you, have you really seen Syria's development? I mean, even nothing or even average or even closer to what good facility is. Even if you see cars on the road, it's mostly just soldier tank wars or pickup trucks that are filled with fully armed terrorists. It's funny, water are even hard to access in Syria, whether you stay in camp or whether you stay in a considered good house. Now, I'm going to tell you why the position of Syria and its situation now. Did you know Syria is the home base for all terrorists, including ISIS? Some areas that are near to Syria is called Gaza, where even Hamas are nearby ISIS and Fatah are nearby ISIS. So Syria is the headquarters mostly by ISIS. So this is where they all gather. So where brutal, violent actions are being done and practiced. So no doubt that this happens in this place, such as killing lots of innocent civilians and illegal weapons transactions. So this is why members opt out or drop out to be drop out from ISIS, because we still, no matter how bad we are, no matter how hard we are, we stand on like ISIS before. But humans can change. There is no possibility that you said that ISIS will forever be ISIS. Humans still can change. Just like a famous person once said, the rock is hard, but when rain keeps pouring down on it, the rock will eventually disappears. Now, America, Iran, and 5 other countries that holds veto countries are now targeting Syria as its main enemy. Why? Because, as we all know, Syria is the headquarters of ISIS, just like I said. Now, if you are on actions, for example, America jet is about to shoot Syria, they are going to bomb and they are going to send lots of troops, hundreds of soldiers. How can you differentiate between a terrorist, a civilian, and an ex-member? Whatever these soldiers see, whatever they represent an ISIS outlook, they will just keep shooting on it. So that's why government really proposed this motion is for protection. We protect this ex-ISIS member because why? They are no longer terrorists. So the government still has the right to protect any civilians because that is what government do. So that is all. Thank you.
First speaker of opposing opposition spent 4 minutes. I call first speaker of opposing opposition. Time is yours.
Now, before the points of argumentations, let me deliver to you 3 points of responses regarding the case brought by the government bench. First of all, they stated to us about how this ISIS, how people who wants to join this ISIS actually have no knowledge or have no other they don't actually know what is how bad ISIS in the current status quo is. But ladies and gentlemen, we think that the bad image of ISIS and also their ideology has widely spread globally. So it doesn't make sense to say that those who just want to join into that ISIS just know that ISIS is bad just when they arrive to that country or just when they are integrated to ISIS. We think that there's no reason for these people to get back to their home country since they are going to since they go to ISIS by their own consent. Even if it's by and we think that even if it's by their own consent, we think that it's already an informative consent, because in the current status quo we can see that how government already educate these people and also shows that the government never want any supporting ISIS organizations to be there in the status quo. So we think that there are already a lot of counter information in order for these people to actually make consent before they really get integrated to the ISIS itself. Second response is that we think Indonesia has a lot of organizations supporting ISIS. That's what the opening government have argued in this debate. We think that it's going to worsen the case when we get these ex-ISIS members integrated back to our society, because we think that the doctrines are still there and still have the possibility to be spread all over the country. Even if the opening government has stated to us about their solutions, there is going to be the comprehensive screening and also investigations, but we think that this ideology that has stick inside of this individual cannot be demolished by these certain mechanisms that has been brought, which is comprehensive screening and also investigations. Even though after these investigations they have no any more relations to the ISIS members out there, but we think the ideological that has been stick towards them can be spread at any time, because that cannot be investigated very easy like the mechanisms that they brought. Third response is we think that these home countries don't have any obligations to accept or to make these ex-ISIS members to integrate it back to the society. Why is that so? Because first of all, I've stated to you how these home countries, the government have given enough education. Second of all, there is a new separations, not only national but also worldwide, about how bad ISIS and also their ideological is. And third of all, there is the policy that the home countries government have made in order for this government to never allow the existence of any organizations that is supporting ISIS. That shows how the big intentions of this government in the home country, that they don't want any ISIS ideology to be spread inside of their country. We think that, we see how. No, thank you. We also see how government bench argued that this is in order to make the image of this home country to be an angelic. We think that in order for this home country to have this angelic image, it's not by the actions of this country to be open arms towards these ex-ISIS members. We think that the country has shown the angelic image since the very first time in order for them to educate and prevent their society to join the ISIS. We think that, however, it shows the country is not being angelic to the rest of the people, to the rest of the country that actually have this national fear or even global fear towards the terrorisms. And we think that it can trigger more national fear inside of the society. By those points of responses, we think that we have responded to all government bench cases. Now, proceeding to my points of argumentations, first of all, I'm going to talk about the deterrence effect. Yes?
Fear in both sides will still happen. Different to your side, you are able to interact and clarify that fear. In our side, you can do it because there is direct interaction with people in our country.
Ladies and gentlemen, we think that terrorism is a very huge crime that people already know that it's really bad, and the fear has been going very well in global, right? So we think that when there is this terrorism is a very huge crime towards the global and create the fears towards the national society, we think that there must be a huge deterrence impact created towards these ex-ISIS members. When they get back, we think when they can get back to this home country, we think there's not going to be the deterrence effect towards these ex-ISIS members, and that we think also the remorse created by these ex-ISIS members is only in a short time. We also think that this will be used as ISIS as the tactics for them in order to spread their ideology. Understanding that right now the power of ISIS is already very declining in the status quo, and we think that when we can be open arms towards the ex-ISIS members, ISIS is going to capture that these home countries are actually weak towards their own protections of their society. Therefore, we can inject more fake ex-ISIS members to the country in order to gain more power. Because since we understand that they are very less in power nowadays. Second of all, I'm going to explain to you how the narratives that the opening government has explained to you actually is not going to happen, but rather the narrative that's going to be created, that is the home country is strict towards the ISIS. All countries are strict towards this global problem. We think that the narrative that's going to be sent when the home countries being open arms towards these ex-ISIS members, we think that the global and also included the ISIS will think that ISIS is not becoming the global threats, and every countries can take their society back. And we think that in here the narrative that actually should be sent is that ISIS has no place in this world. So once you are integrated to ISIS by your own consent, especially with enough information towards you, so you are not going to have place after once you integrated to the ISIS. We also think that this narrative is important to be created to ISIS, since ISIS wants themselves to be looked powerful by all the people in the world. So we think that by this narrative, it's going to send a message to ISIS that they are no longer powerful, and these home countries are not going to accept back their people that has been integrated to ISIS once. Therefore, we have proven to you, first of all, that this terrorism is a huge impact and needs a deterrence effect. Second of all, we have proven to you how the narrative that will be created is that these all home countries are strict towards the protections of the rights from the spread of ISIS ideology. Thank you.
First speaker of opposing opposition spent 7 minutes and 4 seconds. I call second speaker of closing government. Time is yours.
Everyone has a second chances in order to continue their life. Once you become an evil, doesn't mean you have no chances to be an angel. Therefore, we say that as the government side of the house, we would like to send this ex-ISIS member to their home country itself. Before that, what exactly happened on this debate is that on how this opening would fail, on how they prove why government from those home country has the responsible on how they have to accept those ex-ISIS member itself. We say that for the opposition side of the house, they have to prove why in their house they try to let those ex-ISIS member to fight for themselves in order and let them or leave those ex-ISIS member in more in danger situation itself. That's we say it is unjustifiable. We say that the characterization why they becoming an ex-ISIS member, it is because they feel there's something wrong with the idea of ISIS itself, on how they wants to, for example, like those ISIS wants to be claimed as the states. For example, they using a narrative that say they are on jihad, etc., etc. We say that those ex-ISIS member has already realized on how this narrative has gone too far. They cause a lot of things such as killed many people, for example. Also, those ex-ISIS members feels that this ISIS is actually an organization who are not support the humanity itself. Therefore, they wants to get or back to their home country itself. Standing as the closing government cider house, I have two clashes in here, which is whether or not send ex-ISIS members back home is justifiable, and second of all, it's about whether or not this send ex-ISIS member would bring benefit itself. First of all, coming from the opening opposition cider house, they tried to say that no mercy for the terrorism, etc. Yes, we acknowledge that terrorism is a shame action on how a lot of people being tortured, a lot of people being killed by those terrorism. But we say that the reason why the government exists is to protect all their society. Even once you become an evil, for example, you still have a chance to be a better society itself. We say that the essence of government is on how you protect the society, whether they are out of your country, for example, such as even in this proposal is ex-ISIS member themselves. We say that those ex-ISIS member has their feeling on how they feel regret, or on how they remorse on how they think that because of this ISIS actions, I already caused a lot of things. Also, they try to glorify on how, what if those ex-ISIS members playing a rhetoric or lies, etc., etc. We say that as the government cider house, we will ensure that those ex-ISIS will do remorse and realize their action on how they killed a lot of people. We say that even if those ex-ISIS member has a potential to become a terrorist, we say that this is the purpose of the government on how they could educate those ex-ISIS members, show them what exactly the cause of being terrorists. In their house, they want to let the ex-ISIS to continue their life by themselves. We say it would create a problematic since they only got the influence of those ISIS because of they live near on those ISIS area. We say that it is unjustifiable at the very first beginning. Second of all, about how the beneficial would only exist in our proposal. First, it's about point of deterrence. When we say that when they back to the society, when they being acceptable for from the society, they will be a picturized how the impact of ISIS. Therefore, they will feel remorse on how their action has already caused a lot of things. Because of how society has afraid at the very first beginning, we say that it is okay. At least those ex-ISIS members would get the moral punishment by the society, because society are afraid to live near by those ex-ISIS members. We say that it is okay since it is one of the punishment, or it is one of the deterrent effect that coming from our proposal. Second of all, the opposition side of the house say that they will let those ex-ISIS member run their life. We say that the longer you live on the bad circumstances, the more bad impact will you get. We say that it is unjustifiable because all they need is acceptance. They need mercy. Government would not so evil for not accept those ex-member as a human. We say that the idea of potential of being terrorism will exist in their proposal because they will let those ex-ISIS member to live in the circumstances that near with those ISIS area itself. Therefore, the idea of potential being a terrorism again, we say that only exists in their proposal. While in our proposal, we will give them a moral punishment and more deterrent effect. Due to the reason, vote for government.
Second speaker of closing government spent 6 minutes and 23 seconds. I call second speakers of closing opposition. Time is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, member chair of this house, to respond the statement from the government bench, let me give you 3 responses towards the government bench. The first point is that has been stated by the opening government said that they are talking that ideology can easily erase by the ex-members of ISIS, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we as the opening opposition teams think it is not. It is not an easy to erase the ideology that already rooted by the ex-members of the ISIS itself, ladies and gentlemen. And then what they serve to us, ladies and gentlemen, that it is can easily can erase easily by serving the rehabilitations, educate them, the ex-members, and so on. Well, it is not suitable that we're discussing today, ladies and gentlemen. And then we believe that to erase the ideology by the ex-members of ISIS, it needs to take a long time, and it is not an easy way, ladies and gentlemen. Second, moving to second points of rebuttals. The points is the government teams want to build the trusted the trusted environment of the society itself to the ex-members of ISIS, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it will be a little bit work. Well, it will be a little bit work in around of the ex-members itself. But we know that it will be hard to change the image from one country, from all of the society in one country itself, ladies and gentlemen. Well, because people still see the first image, the first impressions that already did by the ex-members of ISIS itself, ladies and gentlemen. So the society when the ex-members of ISIS come into the countries, the society is still doubtful of that person. They feel awareness, they feel scared of that person itself, because the ex-members of ISIS still rooted in their minds, of that countries, and they still scared of that country itself, ladies and gentlemen. And then the third responses towards the government bench is government stated that we need to give chance towards these people to change themselves, ladies and gentlemen. And when you're doing small mistakes to other people's, have the obligation to give you to change, to change. But when you do a very huge crime that triggers the global fear, you already make people afraid towards you what already you did, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have any chance again, because since the very first time you already throw away your previous ideology, you throw your family environment by your own consent, ladies and gentlemen. So let's move to my extension points, explanations why we as opposition teams disagree with these motions today. The first one is bring the doctrines. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we can still believe that the ex-members of ISIS still had an extremist things, and the possibility of their spread their ideology is still even if the government teams say that to integrate it to the society, it will be hard, ladies and gentlemen. And the extremist things that from the ex-members, they brains already the interference doctrine by the ISIS, and it is not an easy way to make their brains normal again, ladies and gentlemen. And then why it is the ex-members very dangerous when they come to their hometown? Well, it is span of the doctrine rapid rather than ISIS itself, ladies and gentlemen, because it is did by the individuality of the ex-members itself, and then it is can recruit another member of ISIS itself, ladies and gentlemen. And if government forgive them what already they did, and no one still can guarantee them if what they will not do that kinds of activity at the same times at the same time, ladies and gentlemen. And then no one knows they still can build another organization seems like ISIS in that country, ladies and gentlemen. So there's so much ISIS like another ISIS in that country, ladies and gentlemen. And then the second point is terrorism is the criminal act that cannot tolerate in everyone and every country, ladies and gentlemen, even if the government team want to agree with these motions, it's still, well, we can realistic that it's really still hard for the country to receive them back, ladies and gentlemen, because we know that the country already know the background of the criminal acts that already ex-members of ISIS already do. Well, we can more realistic about these kinds of problems. Well, the government bench will think that the government will receive them of what already they did. Well, I think that we as the opposition teams think that the government still feel hard to receive them back, ladies and gentlemen, because they already did the criminal things. And then while we know that the terrorism is they kill much innocent people and outside there, and there is no tolerate for that kinds of problem, ladies and gentlemen. And then even if the government want to receive them back, it will be a burden for the government too. Whereas what the opening government has stated before, that they want to rehabilitate, build a good government. Well, it is make the burden for the government itself. The government should take care of that kinds of problems, and then it will make the burden. And we know that there are so many problems that must be finished rather than that. And then we know that. And then this is kinds of the preventive actions that from the government did to decrease the terrorism that happened in that country, ladies and gentlemen. And then the next point is the reason why the ex-members feel remorse. Well, because we know that because they are stuck in the refugee, there's no any resources that they can because the ISIS is highly declined. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there's no any resources and there's no anything that they can get from the ISIS, they will feel remorse. This problem, they feel remorse, but they didn't feel think about what they think already wrong, what they already did. Let's say they just feel remorse because they already joined that organization, ladies and gentlemen. According to the statement that I've already stated before, that we emphasize that to all of you that we still stand with this, we still disagree with this motion that we are discussing today. Thank you.
Second speaker of closing opposition spans